G'day folks, Chris McLean, Peak Performance and Transformation Coach, back with yet another episode of the Peak Performance and Predictable Growth Show, the Peak Performance show for creative agency founders, owners and leaders, where we explore the agency journey from the unique perspective of those at the coalface of the industry. And my guests help us unlock and dissect strategies, tools and tactics that are working right now to help you deliver better results for your clients and grow and scale your agency to 6 and 7 figures and beyond. And today it is my pleasure to welcome in the studio Mick from We Make Apps. And they're based in Melbourne. They're an award-winning app development agency. They specialize in custom jobs. You know, there's ones that require a team with really strong skills and experience. And whether that means beautiful design, expertise in handling huge numbers of users, or deep technological complexity. I think we're going to get deep into all things execution and that fun side of stuff with Mick today. Mick, thanks for dropping by.
Lovely to be here.
My pleasure having you. So take us through how did this all come about? How did we make what birthed We Make Apps? Have you always sort of been on the engineering, dev, coding side of things, or how did you launch the agency?
Well, we've been around for 10 years since 2011, which is ancient by app development standards.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was working at an agency doing digital work, doing web work, and a guy that I worked with got the iPhone 3 and, kind of like clued on to the fact that there was this app store and there was this whole new framework going, and just the kind of, just the sort of, having worked in web for so long, the kind of like amazing new sort of the way the horizons of user experience just grew suddenly. It was quite, we just got really excited about it, and we kind of were like, hey, let's turn this agency we work in to an app agency. And they were like, no, we're doing websites. So we just, it was myself and a business partner, and we just peeled off and started our own thing. So it was just bootstrapped from nothing. I mean, we were just, my business partner was working in the reading room of the state library for the first 6 months of the business. And then, we landed a couple of jobs and just started off just the two of us. And we're now 12 in total. So we've got, it's still very much a technical business where we're all about executing the apps. We're all about building really great pieces of technology. And we've been pretty successful. We've kind of always traded on our, the success and the quality of our previous projects. So for us, it's all about just making sure that the work we do is of top quality.
Yeah, super interesting. As I've been in the app world in 2011 was iPhone 3 was almost 10 iterations ago. What was it about that new interface, that new way of interacting with the customer, or just a new platform to design in, and that whole new user experience? Because you're bang on, when the iPad and the iPhone came out, it was this whole new ecosystem. It was this whole new way of thinking about customer interaction and about using things. What was it about that really sparked that interest for you to go, this is the space I want to dive into and occupy going forward?
Well, I mean, it's in a couple of ways, because just from the perspective of the technology, just the sort of the kind of closeness of the screen and the touch, the way everything was so gestural. The gap between the user and the software they were interacting with just got shortened by, a factor of 5. Suddenly it wasn't keyboard and mouse and a screen, beyond arm's length. Suddenly you were right there, right next to the user, and they were kind of interacting with your software so closely. And, that sort of, suddenly you had to be able to do everything on this tiny little rectangle. You didn't have, 1,800 pixels to play with. You had to do everything really close, and that was sort of at once kind of very challenging and very exciting, just from the perspective as somebody that builds software that gets used by users and thinks about that user experience all the time. That was really exciting. I think thinking about it more from the perspective of the people that we were building the apps for, because we don't build our own apps, we just build them for other people. Suddenly they had their software on a device that is in their customer's pocket all day. It's the last thing they look at when they go to bed. It's the first thing you look at when you wake up in the morning. It's sort of the how close you could get, and even the miracle of push notifications. These little messages that were free to send, all but free to send, became just meant you had such a connection with your users all of a sudden. So it just opened up. As we continue to witness to this day, I mean, it's transformed the way we interact with technology and software, and as a medium of communication between users and the people that want to communicate with them. It's completely changed the game.
Yeah. I really like that. What you're saying, though, the proximity just got literally physically shorter, but also now I'm not using a device to interact with something. I almost am the device. I'm touching it. It's got that kinesthetic quality suddenly. And just as you said, that gestural component was really different from a click and a mouse, and particularly way back when, when we first started using these things, swiping now just seems like a natural thing to do. I mean, 5-year-old kids now they grow up and they just swipe screens, and if it doesn't swipe, it doesn't interact. It's like it's broken. But 2011, that was a whole new thing. And similarly, I was working sort of in the emerging tech space at that time as well, and we were doing sort of larger scale interactive emerging tech, AR, VR, gesture controlled stuff. So similar kind of space in that new user journey. So it was a really interesting, exciting period of the way you communicate and market to a consumer and deliver that message completely shifted. There's a really interesting dynamic, and really, really, you've got this suddenly very close proximity, but a whole different dynamic of how you deliver that message. So in terms of that, sort of constructing that user journey, constructing taking all of the potential touch points and interactions you could have inside an app, how did you go about, and how do you continue to go about kind of structuring that out to sort of optimize the touch points, but then also, I guess that might have changed over time, that it's become there's so much interaction now that you're getting the right amount of touch point, the right amount of interaction, the right amount of communication without going overboard, but also having enough that the user's engaged.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole line of our business is trying to get that right. We always talk about the user experience is the phrase, which I've always, I guess it's a good a word as any. And we're really talking about, what does it feel? How does it feel for the user to go through all of this stuff? And, there's no right answer. There's no single way to do it. Every app we build comes with its own set of challenges, and the way the app used makes a whole lot of difference. The context in which you're using it changes the way we design and build the apps. I mean, the thing that's great about working in this sector is it's all up for grabs. It's all still there to be explored. The paradigms just shift so quickly, and there's so much room to kind of experiment and do your own things. So, it gives us, we sort of like to think it's quite a creative work we do, and we're working in this space where there's scope to kind of come up with something totally new, totally new, come up with something new enough. We built this, one of the first apps we built that was really successful was one for the city of Sydney, so where you could find the food trucks.
Okay.
And we built this we came up with this home screen that had a map in the top half and then a list of what all the trucks were doing, and it was pulling all of their Instagram and Twitter posts. And and we sort of thought, oh, should we put a tab so you can switch between them? And we ended up building this whole sort of split screen view where you could sort of have this bar that you could move up and down and sort of say, oh, I want 1/3 map and 2/3 content, and we just made it up ourselves, and I mean, compared with the sort of when you're building web-based form data software like in the 90s and early 2000s, this was so sort of new. The fact that you could have people sort of touching the screen all the time, it was that stuff's really fun. I mean, I always think of this other example. We did an app for climate scientists at Monash University. It's all about reporting extreme weather events. So, massive hailstorms or flooding and all of this sort of stuff. And so we had to design an app that you would use, and in a potentially dangerous situation, you needed to report this weather event in absolutely as fast as possible. So, all of a sudden, everything just changes. You take the photo, there's no confirmation, there's no editing. You've taken the photo, right? Are you ready to send? You hit the send, bang, it's gone. It's sort of like we were trying to get under 10 seconds to just go tap, 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 done. And this kind of that kind of situation where suddenly you've got to create software to work like that, it's exciting, it's fun, and it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's really interesting, that sort of contextual component of it. Sort of why am I using this app in the first place, and what does it need to do?
It's what we always think about. We always talk about the usage pattern. How often is your app going to be used? Some apps have a usage pattern which is like tiny little, they'll be checking the app, little under 30-second sessions, but a few times a day. So that suddenly makes you think, okay, well, it's that kind of app where I'm just sort of checking data, perhaps it's your share trading app, I just want to get in there. I want to get to my watch list. How are my shares going? Whereas if we're building like a kind of social network style app, then we want users, we want users to be on the app for ages. We want 10, 20-minute sessions. We want deep content that they can continue to explore, all of that sort of thing. Yeah, that's a lot of what we do and what we enjoy exploring.
So do you find that clients tend to come to you with that? We sort of spoke earlier, a lot of the times clients will come with that strategy, and then you're really just executing and bringing that strategy to life, which is still, as you say, that's a very, very creative aspect, particularly with apps and with design, where it is that very dynamic environment. Are you you're really sort of in that translation business, right? Here's what I want to do. Here's what I think the strategy is. Here's what I need. Here's the functionality I think it needs to have. Now actually make that real. Here's the plan for the building. Can you now go and build the building for us and make sure it fits the criteria and that it's going to work for the purpose?
Plan for the building. Often it's like, I bought the land and I want something.
I want a building.
Really cool. I want this to impress my friends. Okay. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it varies. That in terms of what our clients come to us with, but certainly the idea of being a translator feels right, and that's sort of my role in the business, because to be able to sit down with somebody who's got some novel idea, or they've got a need that they work with government, and government's like, we want to build an app to help revive the economy of our city post-COVID. Okay. We're thinking we might do something like this, and then to take those ideas and do this translation work so you can say, okay, this is what we're going to build for you, and present it in a language that's understandable by everybody, that's not a technical document, but at the same time be able to turn around to my team of programmers and say, this is what we're going to do, and we need to sort of do it like this technically. This is where we're going to pull the data from, and this is it's going to be hosted there, and this piece of data is going to move there. So doing that, being in that point, sort of translating all of these different requirements and sort of making sure that each audience has got their own vocabulary and their own, their own way of understanding and conceptualizing these requirements, and making sure that everybody's on the same page, everybody's understanding the same thing at its core. That's one of the hardest things to do. And I mean, in my agency, that's my role. I'm the person to translate everything, because I've worked as the programmer, so I know how to talk their language, and I can kind of understand the business side of things. And it's a key part. And we often come across this. You do tend to get agencies in our space. Some are better than us at kind of marketing and strategy and really getting into the client's sort of requirements, but they often can't execute technically. And the opposite happens. You've got a lot of really technically capable businesses out there, but if they don't have somebody that can, do the sort of the thinking to synthesize everything so that technical execution can happen, you end up with technology that's beautifully written but doesn't actually achieve the goals that it's set out to do.
So it's not functional then, right? So it might look great, but it doesn't do that. It's not fit for purpose. I think that's
so hard. I
think that's a very unique and very, very hard to develop, or very, very specific skill set. As I said, to sort of live in both worlds. What do you think? Do you think that's just natural to you? Is that's just kind of naturally how you are? You've always been able to kind of synthesize things and then regurgitate them into a technical spec or an engineering plan? Has that always been the case, or is that something you've just developed over time? But as you said, sort of living in both camps. How have you developed that skill set, do you think?
I don't know. It's hard to know, because it's hard to know yourself. I mean, it's a mix of what I'm naturally into. I mean, my business partner has it as well, in a different twist. And I think one of the things I know for both of us is that we both have a lot of interests outside of technology. That it helps to kind of be doing and thinking and absorbing a lot of things that aren't related to the kind of technical side of things that we do, whether it's, reading a lot of books or gardening or just, I'm always fascinated by the work that the sort of line of work that our clients are into, whether it's corporate work or non-government work or startups, just to be curious, I guess, about the whole world and understand that the technology part of what we do is, I guess it's just not that important, There's a lot of hype around technology and a lot of focus on technology these days. And sometimes I think all the focus on technology distracts us from the goals the things that we're doing. We're trying to use technology for other purposes. We get so hung up on the technology itself. I mean, we're certainly guilty of that with a completely tech-focused business. But it's really important to keep reminding yourself, what are we trying to do here? Or perhaps what would we do here if we didn't have the technology? How would we solve this problem? And then it often helps you understand which parts, where is it appropriate to bring the technology in to make this better, and where is it actually not appropriate, and where is technology just going to get in the way? And so sort of keeping all of those things in mind, it's, I guess the answer to the question, how are you good at translating between non-technical worlds and the technical world? And it's by not spending too much time in not spending all my time in the technical world. That's what I think. And then I think that the translation part sort of happens by itself, because you just you're able to think about things in different ways.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I think that idea that technology is essentially it's a tool or a mechanism. It's almost like a scaffolding that we sort of build around an essentially human endeavor, whatever that is.
Exactly.
So it's a business or a proposition or an idea. It's a human thing, and then the technology is kind of this scaffolding, or it's this thing that we use to extend that idea and bring it into reality. Whether that technology is a stick or a rock or fire, or building on Ruby on Rails and building an app and building a web app and having it on Amazon Cloud, whatever that technology is, it allows us to extend our human capabilities out into the world. So I think exactly as you're saying, having that foot in both worlds and really understanding the human essence of what this thing is, what is the actual problem, what are we trying to do here, and then using that as a mechanism to then sort of filter out, well, actually, maybe this part of the technology can be very simple. The technology can technically, the technological component can be simple, but it's solving a complex problem.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's very simple technology that you need.
But that ability to discern between, I think that, as you're saying, a lot of things there's a tendency to overcomplicate, because we have all this stuff available, right? We have all this amazing technology, so let's just use it all. Do you find that? I know we're sort of, let's call it a decade into this stuff now, but I always realize I need to take a step back. So I'm sure you're probably like this as well. When you've been immersed in this stuff for 10, 20, 30 years, you think that everybody else understands it the same way that you do. So I find it's important to sort of step back and realize that not everybody, particularly a lot of businesses, still don't essentially understand technology and digital and what this space is about. Do you find that a lot of clients still come in with a real lack of understanding of what this stuff is, or has that, because you've been really in this for the last 10 years when it's become exponential, and especially over the last year when everyone's had to digitize? How is that customer, how are customers showing up now? Are they more well versed, or do they just know that they need to do it, but they still don't really understand what it is?
No, they're increasingly well informed.
Nice.
And it's overall, it's a good thing. Sometimes it means the expectations are really high, because when I go to add a photo on Instagram, it's really easy, and I can apply all of these filters, and a child could do it. Why can't we get that? And so sometimes you're sort of like, well, it's the thing that all of these great businesses strive to do is make extremely complicated processes appear simple. So the expectations of the quality of what we produce are actually higher because of that, because people are familiar with technology. And, lots of people, I think people understand, all sorts of people understand this stuff now. And it's kind of seeped right through organizations now. And, when we work with government, and they just, there's sort of they're much more open to us sort of managing all of the cloud infrastructure now. They're like, it's no longer we have to control everything. They're like, no, we're happy for you to do it, and here's all of the requirements we expect from it. But they're very well informed. And then we also tend to do a fair bit of work with businesses that are kind of already tech businesses themselves, that have a technology product. Often they're delivering it as a web-based product, and they just need some specialists to come in and do the app. And in those cases, we're working with extremely technologically savvy clients. there's so much digital. It's kind of everywhere. Definitely are clients better informed? Yes, but I think overall it's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Even the ones that sort of, even the people that recognize that they don't understand the technical side of things, they kind of get the concepts. People these days understand. It's almost everyone understands the idea that the data's in the cloud and you've got the software on your phone and they're talking to each other all the time. People get that. Everyone understands. Oh, you want it to work offline? Well, that's more complicated because it's not connected to the cloud anymore. People get that. I don't have to explain those things anymore. People even get. There's so many things. It's amazing how quickly things become normalized, like pull to refresh. I remember when pull to refresh was invented. Everyone was like, wow, what a great idea. And now clients like, why can't I'm pulling, it's not refreshing. Why don't you have pull to refresh? All of these sorts of things. There's lots of things from, technical things and right through to, obvious UX concepts that our clients are very well informed with these days.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with that, like expectation. That's the thing that really changes. And that's all throughout. That's right. That's marketing. That's expectations around what starting a business looks like in 2021, what university looks like, what starting an SMMA and making a 7-figure business. As expectations have shifted around that because it's more prevalent. We see more of that stuff out there. So we either we assume that it's easier to get because we see so much of it. But I think absolutely in your world, that expectation of simple stuff, or clients assuming that pull to refresh is a super simple thing because everyone else has it. They don't recognize that's gone through thousands of iterations and there's a whole lot of complexity around making that happen. And is that worthwhile for your app, for the user journey, all that kind of stuff? But I could imagine that would be a difficult thing to manage, that expectation shift.
Yeah, it's sort of part of me feels like it keeps us real, I mean, that's right. Why can't our app be as simple to use as TikTok? Why not? It should be. It's just this they're not using magic tricks. We can do it as well. So it kind of I like the pressure. I like the expectations because it forces us to keep up and keep improving.
So it sets the bar, I guess, right? So what can we do now that this stuff is out there? Okay, we can do all of that. What can we do now? We need to push to the next level, and what's the next thing? So that's the place, a good place to wrap up. Where is, in your world, where are things heading? Obviously AI, machine learning, a lot of that stuff starting to come through and become more and more prevalent. Is that a major focus for you guys? What's the next big thing that's going to start to impact and be 10 years from today? What's that expectation going to be? That everything's just running on machine learning and AI? What do you think is that, or is it something else? What's coming through the pipes?
I don't know, to be honest. Like
so much.
This goes to my this goes back to not spending too much time in the world of technology. I'm weirdly not a very good person to ask about like what's going to happen in 10 years. I'd be thinking more about, well, where's our fresh water going to come from, rather than whether there'll be AI in our phones or not. So yeah, there's we're doing stuff in AI. We're computer vision is probably another really big thing. I think we've barely scratched the potential for everything that we can do with image understanding, not just, facial recognition is the first thing you think of, but, your phone can in almost real time get a 3D model of its surroundings just based on the camera. That's only going to become more accurate. And I don't think that often. I think that what the technology is capable of is well ahead of how it's actually being used. You know, like we've actually had sort of VR for decades now. We had that forever, and it's still. I still feel like we're still kind of cracking what it can actually, how we can actually use that VR. And I feel the same about the computer vision. And I think a lot of it's just going to be really, I don't know, really sort of prosaic stuff. Like, I mean, we've got a client who's I'm not allowed to say what they want to do, but anyway, I think there's a lot you can do with these devices in this sort of construction space. You know, I just want to measure everything and imagine, you know, how much concrete am I going to need to fill this hole? I'll just point my phone at it and it'll calculate the volume for me. That kind of unsexy,
really practical stuff. That's
really practical stuff.
Traditionally been hard to do.
There's a lot to happen in that space with some of those technologies.
I think that's an amazing point, that the technology absolutely is well ahead of the commercialization of it, but also just the practicality. I mean, VR's been around since Lawnmower Man in the early 90s or late 80s, whenever that movie came out. But I mean, conceptually, that stuff's been around for probably 30 years. Just hasn't been. It hasn't quite found how we're going to use this on a mass scale. But even algorithms and AI, right? That stuff's been around for such a long time. It's just becoming part of the narrative more. And it's really finding practical applications. And like you say, a lot of the time it's really unsexy. It's taking a photo and going, how much concrete is that going to take to fill up? But that's a really useful thing. But on the back end, it's really complicated. But the technology advances so much that it makes that complexity really simple to actually execute on. Yeah, really interesting point. I think it's really interesting space to be operating in, because this stuff is exponentially accelerating. There's always going to be
changing.
New amazing stuff. New amazing stuff to do.
One of the biggest challenges we have is just keeping up, you know, just constantly keeping up. And it's very hard when you're in this kind of, you know, in a commercially constrained agency. You're trying to maximize your profits all the time, and a project comes in the door and you're like, well, we could use the frameworks and the technology that we've used for the last 10 projects, or should we use this new thing, even though it's going to be slower and we're not familiar with it? But if you don't force yourself to take that medicine over and over again, you do fall behind. You just get stuck in a rut doing things the old way, and it becomes harder and harder to keep up. So we're constantly kind of stopping, and we're forever choosing projects, and we're forever doing things differently than we did them before. So just so that we can keep up. I mean, often it's kind of like 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. You know, sometimes we say, let's use this technology, and it turns out to be terrible, and we wish we'd never used it. But if you don't try them out, then
you never know.
Yeah, you'll never know, and you'll miss out on the good ones.
I think it's super important, particularly again in your world, being agile and adaptable. It's just, that's the name of the game. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Really enjoyed our chat, Mick. If people want to find out more about you, get connected, they got a great app idea that they want executed beautifully, where's the best place for them to reach out and connect with you?
Just through the website is the best. You know, I'm on LinkedIn as well. I get a lot of people contacting me through there. I'm easy to find. We make apps. It's easy to remember.
Beautiful. I'll drop all those links in the show notes and all around. So if you're watching and you're interested in getting in contact, you can click a link and go connect with Mick and get your app made by We Make Apps. Thanks so much for dropping by, Mick. It was really, really interesting. So it's a fascinating space and sort of a have a lot of love for this space, having sort of been in that emerging tech space for a while. So it's fascinating. This stuff is moving so fast. Staying abreast of it's a challenge, but it's really, really exciting challenge.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate you swinging by, and thanks everyone for tuning in, and hope that was insightful. Hope you got some good detail and good information out of that as much as I did. Thanks, Mick, for being here. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Chris. It was a pleasure.